some guys that played here. And the truth is, our job as a coaching staff and as a team are to find the best players at every position, no matter what the circumstances are. So we have some guys that have a leg up on each other from some experience perspective, but the best guy will kick, and that's kind of what we're trying to find out this spring.
What did you see from Parker Lewis last year, even though he didn't play?
He's a powerful kicker. He's talented. He really is. You know, he started 2 seasons at Southern Cal, and so that's one of the guys I mentioned that has experience in other places. And so, you know, he's going to be right in the mix, and we got to figure out kind of, you know, he was ineligible to start the season, so he was behind a little bit some of the other guys, and that's why this spring will be really big.
How much does Jaden's experience on kickoffs factor into now having a chance at that field goal spot?
It does. You know, playing in any game, in any role, is experience. Obviously, he didn't kick any field goals or extra points during the season, but because he was the travel guy and the kicker that was kicking off, he was our backup all last season. So he got extra reps during practice, and those will be very beneficial for him. But they won't really, you know, they're different than what we're going to go through in the spring. That's kind of now we're going to see who's the one.
What's your communication been like with Noah over the past month? Have you had to kind of make sure his spirits stay up with the way things ended?
Noah's a tough dude. I didn't have to make sure his spirits were up. They were, you know, it was. I talked to him immediately after the kick. I talked to him in the locker room later. My wife and I saw him right after. You know, it was one of those. You can't prepare for that. You can't. You know, until you do it and you go through it, it's, you know, really tough. But then we talked, you know, the days and the weeks, and I talked to him yesterday. You know, it's one of those things. He's in a good place, but it was hard.
To, you know, make that decision in the moment, like, how much confidence did you have that he could make that kick?
All the confidence in the world. I mean, the guy just made a 48-yarder. He's been a, you know, really good player for us. He's been unflappable. That's who he was. He like I said, he made a 48-yarder maybe 5 minutes before that, and you know, didn't go in. It's one of those things where he'd love to have it back, but he doesn't get it. And, you know, there's no one else I'd rather have in that spot in that moment. I trusted him fully.
I know Ryan Day talks a lot about allowing young guys to earn their stripes on special teams.
Sure.
Of that younger contingent, who stood out most to you?
You know, I'm trying to think of who. A bunch of. I mean, young is such a relative term now. With, you know, the youngest guy on our team, Sonny Styles, he played a lot, you know, on special teams. But then you've got other young. I mean, that's one thing. I don't know who's young and who's not. Chip was a first-year player for us. Chip played a lot for us on special teams. You know, my favorite example is obviously an older guy now, but look at, you know, Mitch Rossi and Xavier Johnson. You know, who do you trust more than those guys? And X is scoring a touchdown against Notre Dame and then one against Georgia. You know, that's where X made his life, you know, and he still does. Even though now that he's playing on offense, he's still a big-time special teams guy. But young guys, Sonny Styles, CJ, as you saw, played. CJ Hicks, that is, not CJ Stroud, but played on special teams. A bunch of guys did a really nice job. Caden Curry made a bunch of tackles. You know, the list goes on and on for some of those true young guys.
How was CJ Hicks doing?
He's doing well. You know, he's in a good place. He's got same deal as all these other guys, but he's going to have a tough spring, and that's the life we live here. So
you think back to 2019, obviously a really close loss to Clemson. I know that the 2020 circumstances were pretty unique, right? And there was obviously an awful lot of build-up to wanting to play that season because of the frustrating last minute loss that you threw.
Sure.
Do you feel much of that going into next year, or is it too early to gauge that?
The team's just getting back together. I mean, there's definitely a hungry group. If you look at some of the guys that have chosen to come back, you know, I'm really excited about that group of guys. You know, some of our older players. You're right, though. The 19 to 20 team that year was so different, and it almost culminated in a weird way for us. With we lost in the championship game, but we beat Clemson after a whole year of hearing and working towards that, and then we didn't play our rival that year, so a lot of that energy kind of got put into that last, that Clemson game instead of the up north game. You know, time will tell kind of how that season impacts us and how that end of the season impacts, but we got a hungry team right now, and that's kind of what you want. So,
Mark, we don't get to talk to you that much, so there's just some interesting things that happen to have some specific questions about.
Sure.
We all know that what's been discussed with the call on the fake in the Michigan game that didn't get executed. Can you just